Hi, this is Nick. I'm with Martin Simpson, and I believe you're going to start off by playing us a track from your latest album.
Yes, from the album Rooted. This is called Ken Small. True story. Scoured the tagline, seeking small treasure down on the shore, until the night that the storm came tore off the seafront, and he found his life's purpose in the litter of war. Shrapnel and shell cases, buttons and badges, revealed by the storm tide, long hidden and lost, like the lives of the young men who came to this country at such a great cost. Ken followed his dreams to this place in the Southland. He came seeking solace down on the shore, but out of the blue the dreams became nightmare, awakened in darkness down on the shore. Out in the water the fishermen told him there was something down there that should not be, something that told him a forgotten story of young men dying in a burning sea, determined to salvage the truth from the seafloor. 10 years of struggle it turned out to be, until the Sherman tank rolled on its own 2 tracks, without any help from the powers that be. Ken sits in his car by the tank at Torcross, his windows down, and he's happy to share his sandwich with starlings, his story with strangers. He has nothing but time for those that care. He got a letter from the president, another from the witch, poor congratulations from the privileged and the rich, and he got the key and the link from the lady in Torquay, who knew she had a gift to give, and where the gift should be. His money was gone, his marriage was broken, he sat on the seafront, he never grew old, but he found peace and treasure down on the shoreline. He found truth and healing in the story he told. There we go.
Wow, there's an amazing density of information in that song.
There is.
So what's the starting point for something like that?
Well, I knew I had this. I had a little bit of information about this place, Slapton Sands in Devon. I went there at some point. I guess it would have been around 1990 or something. I had a trip there, and I was told that this awful thing had happened in the Second World War. By that time, the information was out of what had happened, but it had only very recently been revealed. And so in 2014 I went back there, and I was walking along the beach at Slapton Sands and thinking about this story that I'd been told. And the first swallow of spring flew over my head, and so I wrote a song called Dark, Swift and Bright Swallow, which is about the place, but it alludes to the place and it alludes to what happened there, but it's basically about what these birds do for us, because they come back year after year. They come, they leave us, they come back. So it was about that, and I went back down there and I sang the song that I'd written for them, if you like. And the local people really responded in a very positive way to the fact that I'd written a song about their place that they loved. And one guy in particular, Dean Small, the next time I went down there, he came to the gig and he brought a mandolin to show me. And he brought a book to show me. And the book was written by his father, who was Ken Small. And that's where this story really kicks off into what became the second song. So Ken Small was a policeman, actually, to start with, from Hull. He moved to live in Immingham near Grimsby. Became disillusioned with the police force for various reasons. He became a wig salesman and a hairdresser. And he did very well because he was a very smart bloke, and boy, you know, when he did something, he did it with his full attention. So he then went on holiday down to this place, Tor Cross, at the other end of Start Bay, the west end of Start Bay, and he found a guest house which he bought and moved down there, just thinking, this is it, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do, and I will be happy. And he got down there and had a massive nervous breakdown, just could not get up, you know. A fisherman friend of his said, you should start to beachcomb. So he started a beachcomb and found amazing things, really astonishing things, King James gold coins, and he found a gold clock watch face, which was just unbelievably ornate, you know, from a pocket watch, and diamond rings and all sorts of things, and shrapnel on a beach, on an English holiday beach. Turned out that in 1943, that whole area had been evacuated, so the Americans could practice for the D-Day landings. And April the 27th, 1944, they did a thing called Operation Tiger, which involved sailing a big curving flotilla of landing craft carrying amphibious tanks, trucks, ammunition, fuel, you name it, from Lyme Bay to the east, where Lyme Regis is. So from Dorset in a curving line into Devon, into Start Bay in Devon. It was, alas, very mismanaged. There was an English destroyer on the outside of the line, but it was not on the same radio frequency as the Americans, I think due to a typo. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, a flotilla of German E-boats, which were motor torpedo boats, very powerful, very fast, attacked the landing craft from the inside of the line. And the English went, oh, the Americans are using live ammo again. They had no idea anything was amiss. It was pitch black and, you know, some miles away. They killed about 1,000 men in this very brief attack, and then they were gone because these things did 40 knots, you know, incredibly fast and powerful. The whole thing was hushed up. It was completely hushed up. It was basically for morale and in terms of letting information out about what was about to happen. It was a complete no-no that it should be allowed to be public, so it was not. And it remains basically not. It's never formally been revealed what happened there. So Ken Small was beachcombing, and one night there was a massive storm, and the rollers just literally made a cliff out of the beach like that. And what was left were a couple of mines and the obvious site of, you know, a battle. There were shell cases and shrapnel and you name it, bits of vehicle littered all over this beach. And his fisherman friend told him that there was something out in the water which they'd been snagging their nets on for years, and nobody really knew what it was, but they assumed it was to do with this. And so he set about discovering what it was and found out that it was a duplex drive amphibious Sherman tank, which basically drove off a landing craft. It had propellers on the back of it. It drove off a landing craft into the water. It had big canvas sides which kept the water out of it, and the idea was that, you know, it went along until it got to a certain point where it was on the land, then it dropped the canvas sides, the propellers were no longer functional, and off it went. Well, this one had failed. And there it was on the seafloor. So he said, right, well, I'm going to get to the bottom of all this, literally and metaphorically. And he decided he would salvage the tank. So he went to the British government and said, look, I found this and I would like permission to salvage it. And they said, no, go away. So he thought, right, that's not what I expected. So he got in touch with the American government, slightly more pragmatic, and they said, well, you could salvage it, but in order to do that, you'd have to own it. And so he said, well, what would that cost? They went, yeah, $50. so
for a tank?
Yeah, for a tank. So he bought the tank, and then he went on with the salvage idea. It took him 10 years. He got literally no help, nothing but obstruction from the Brits. But in the meantime, he was developing this extraordinary relationship with people in power in the US. He was talking to the Pentagon and people in the White House on the phone and writing letters. I mean, it was very laborious. It was massively expensive. In 1984, he got flotation devices and heavy haulage, and he got this tank ready to go. And the army had said they would come and help. So he called up on the morning that he was going to raise the thing from the seabed and said, right, I've got the heavy haulage and the flotation devices in place, so I'm ready for you. And they went, well, if you've got those, you don't need us, do you? And they didn't turn up, And so there was this massive obstacles that he had to overcome. He went on with his salvage, got it off the seafloor, and then hauled it with these massive machines up onto the beach. And when he got it up to the road, his next problem was how you get it from there to the place across the road where it was going to stay as a memorial for what had happened. And the grease in the tracks of this tank was still there after 40 years. It just rolled itself across the road, which I think is a fantastic image. So he'd done it, he'd revealed this story, he'd revealed this thing. And he wrote a book called The Forgotten Dead. And after he'd done this, he just spent the rest of his life sitting in his car by the tank, and people would come and talk to him. And there's a line, the lady from Torquay brought the D-Day mandolin. An old lady from Torquay who had a guest house had American soldiers billeted with her, and in the Second World War the American troops were often given mandolins, kind of mental health, And these guys who stayed with her had gone off to Omaha Beach, which was a bloodbath, and when they came back they presented her with this mandolin, and on the side of it had the number of their landing craft, it had the date and where they'd gone to, and it said, by the grace of God we came back. Excuse me. And so the mandolin was engraved with all their names, just scratched with something very sharp. And they gave it to her, and as she grew old, she decided she needed to do something with this, so she went down and she gave it to Ken as he sat in his car, by the tank. So it was a real challenge to me to get as much of that information as possible into a brief song. I mean, I could have made it a much bigger song, but I didn't want to. It's a big enough story. It doesn't need anything, I don't think, except what it has, which is, the things which will allude to what went on in such a way that if people want to, they can follow it up, they can find out. But I think it tells the story really well. I hope it does.
Interesting question. There's a filmmaker, I think it might have been Cameron or Scorsese, that said movies are never finished, we just release them. Is there a point with this song or other songs where you go, that's it, I'm happy with it? Or is it a case of release? Is there a point where you go, yeah, that's full stop, I'm happy with that?
Well, the really interesting thing about this one for me is that I'd kind of finished the music. I'd recorded a demo of it, and I'd done it in the key of F. I'm now singing it in D. I'd done it in a different tuning because I really liked what the guitar was doing, this guitar actually. So I recorded it with bass and electric guitar, so I'd got the shape of the song, but I actually hadn't finished the lyrics at that point. So I edited the shape of the song to accommodate the finished lyrics, and then I overdubbed drums and cello on it. And when I listen, I really like it. It's on the record, you know, I really like it. And it had to be finished, it had to be done for the record, because it was essential to me to have that song on the record. It's one of the central stories to the record. Having done it, I then was put in a position where I have to do it live, and I decided I didn't want to do it in the key of F, and I didn't want to do it in that tuning, so I put it in the key of D now, and changed it. I haven't changed the lyrics, and I haven't much changed the arrangement. I've just actually, what I've done is I've put a bit more space in it. But was it finished? Well, that record of it was finished. Yeah. That's the thing. The song, I hope that song will never be finished. Because it's a story that needs to be told.
And a lot of your work, I've noticed that there are some really great stories with where the listener is literally off somewhere into some other territory.
Yeah.
How much of particularly history in terms of storytelling informs what you tend to write?
Well, I mean, I think I write about what moves me, and what happens to people, what happens to nature, those things move me. And so my songs tend to have people's lives in there, and they tend to have my experiences with nature and my journeys through the landscape, not journey as it's been a journey, you understand? Not that. So I think reality informs everything that I do in a sense. The human experience. I mean, I made a record, I suppose it's nearly 10 years ago now, called True Stories, but I figure I should actually be making True Stories Volume 6 next.
And I know that we're in this great room here with a huge variety of different instruments. So a lot of people might know you primarily for the guitar, but I'm looking at electric guitars, Stratocasters, banjos, mandolas, all sorts of strange and curious items. Do certain songs just sort of inspired by certain instruments, or how do things tend to marry up?
Instruments absolutely inspire songs, and an instrument might give you one song. It might give you two songs. It might give you a wagon load of songs. So I love these instruments. I love how wacky they are. I love how completely strange some of them are. They all have their voices, and they all have something different to offer. And so, I don't keep some of them. I don't keep them for very long. You get something, and it will make you write or play in a certain way, and then it's pretty much done. So you move it on. You might sell it. You might trade it for something else that's going to give you something else to do. But also, one of the things that I do is I work with guitar makers, and indeed other instrument builders, to try and just get better instruments made. And I think that's a wonderful. I've been doing that since I was 20, I suppose. I think it's a wonderful thing.
And I know of some of the guitar makers, but it might be useful just to, how have they informed, again, in terms of how you've played things? And
I think that's a pretty hard one. I think because I've played different guitars by different people over the years, but particularly, for instance, Stefan Sobel, who made this, he's been, you know, the person with whom I've had the longest relationships, and his instruments sound like me.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do, you know, and that's incredible to have somebody who reinforces your voice.
And this one here is a recent one?
A very new. Excuse me, I'm just going to pick up this errant thumpick. It's a very new Martin Simpson model. It's African blackwood, Transylvanian spruce, which I love. It howls in the night, and it just has this huge voice, and it's actually very pianistic. You hear absolutely every note. It doesn't go woof, you know, like maybe an old Gibson, you know, beautiful sounding guitar, but you go like that and you hear the chord. With this you hear every piece of the chord. And it loves to be whacked. It's very funny just to kind of, you know, I wasn't thinking that I was going to do that, but I just started to go off there, which is what should happen when you play, you know?
we were looking at the tenor earlier on. Can we just have a look at that as a complete contrast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think you could not have two instruments more different, but also that sound fantastic.
Well, it's funny because that's a tune. The tune that I was playing there is called "When First Unto This Country." Now it'd be. Here's a little tiny instrument, but the very first thing that I played on this was that tune. When first into this country, a stranger I came. Oh, I courted a fair maiden, Nancy was her name. I courted her for love, but love I did not obtain. Do you think I've any reason or right to complain? Oh, I rode to see my Nancy, I rode both day and night, until I stole a fine grey horse, bought from Captain William White. But the sheriff's men, they followed, they overtaken me, and they carted me away to the penitentiary, and they beat me, they opened up the door, and then they throwed me in, and they cleared off my head, and they shaved off my chin. They beat me and they banged me, they fed me on dry beef, until I wished unto my own soul I'd never been a thief, with my hands stuck in my pockets, and my cap put on so bold, and my coat of many colours, like Jacob of old. Tiny, focused, beautiful, weird thing. It's interesting to me just singing that song. That song is such a small song in some ways, but it's full of detail, alluding to this guy's life, what happened to him, and that's what I love about. I feel myself in a direct line between a traditional song like that and what I'm doing, what I'm writing, And I love to sing songs like that and play around with. What a great tune.
Well, anyone who's been following your music will know that the albums evolve and change, and it's never like with some artists which are great, but you go, no, it's kind of nice, it's similar to the previous album, but you know, there's ever expanding ideas and musical collaborations with people. I know you had Andy Cutting and Nancy Kerr, and on the new album you have.
Well, I've got Nancy and Andy again, but in a basically a section with Liz Hanks, who's a great cello player. I also have I've worked with a lot of these musicians before. Don Flemons is on there playing Bones, you know. Got various wonderful singers involved with it. Ben Nichols playing the bass, John Smith playing electric guitar. I've got Tom Wright playing drums on this record and percussion. But it's not just who it is, it's how you use them, you know, and how you get them to play. And there's a number of songs on the record that were just done by rehearsing the songs, really teaching these guys the songs, and Liz would go away and write parts, and Nancy would improvise, and Andy would improvise, until we could go in the studio and just sit and play it and play the exact form and performance that I wanted to do, but without putting the vocals on, because I just was suffering with sinusitis the whole way through, and so it was a remarkable thing to have these people who are so good that they knew exactly how to play the song, even though I wasn't singing it. I'd written them the maps, you know, so they're sitting there and they're kind of looking at it, and they know what's coming. They know where they should be and how they should be and when to drop out and all that kind of thing. And then, you know, we went in and put Ben Nichols, a bass player, who is just fantastic, on a lot of that stuff to, you know, to give it extra boot down the bottom end, and it's come out sounding unlike anything I've done before, really. And there's a lot of stuff in this room right now which is pushing me in different directions. But you know, it comes down to it. What I do is I play and sing songs, and that's what I'm continuing to do. I haven't written anything. No, I haven't finished anything new since I've done the record. But I just keep finding. I keep finding things. Let me play you this. We're in with Kit and Max, and I've been driving around the place like we do. When we're in the car, we listen to music a lot. I do a lot of my work learning songs when I'm driving. When the three of us are in the car, we might listen to lots of different things. So this particular day, I think we'd listen to Queen and ABBA, the new album by the Specials,
Which is probably not what people associate you with.
and Emily Portman. Long trip, so we'd kind of gone through all that, and Kit put on a live Bob Dylan record, and this came up. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are changing. Come your mothers and fathers throughout the land, don't criticize what you can understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one. If you can't, lend your hand, for the times they are changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. Don't speak too soon, for the wheels are still in spin, and there's no telling who that's leaving. For the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are changing. Come senators and congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging, and it'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are changing. The line is drawn and the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are changing.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of Music for the Head and Heart. It's an absolute pleasure to hear from you. And if people want to know more about your music, what's the best place for them to go and seek you out?
You go to www.martinsimpson.com or the Topic Records website. Yeah, that.
Thank you so much.